Well, I think all 18 sides would like Zach Merrett in their team. We know what a high-quality player he is. Let's dig into it, Cal, because you've been the one who's been across this story what feels like an eternity because it goes up and down. Is it a PR exercise? I'll probably throw a few questions. Is it a PR exercise? Is it a move being pushed by Zach and his team? Is it a move pushed by Essendon? Is there other things at play? Walk us through why now after what we went through not even 6 months ago.
Yeah, all fair questions, Jim, and questions that have certainly been everywhere over the past couple of days since we reported this on Footy Classified and AFL.com.au on Tuesday night. But so the basics of the story are that Zach Merrett's contracted for this year, of course, and next year. So at the end of 2027, they've put forward a multi-year deal to extend that, as well as a lift in pay doc for next year. So he's on a deal that has been front-ended to a degree for this year and next. And then this new deal would undertake a pay rise for next year, as well as a $1.1 to $1.2 million deal beyond that.
So we're going to keep jumping in, and Doc, fire away, because we're going to pepper you, Kel, because you know the ins and outs. So is that where some of the angst lays? He feels like he's not being valued, or whatever it was at the front, he feels like that should be his value throughout the year. So why the urgency, if you do a deal in good faith at the start, that it needs to keep being readjusted?
And it has been readjusted a couple of times already. I mean, he re-signed in 2021 for 6 years when he was a free agent. The market in that 5-year period has changed drastically, but that deal was on about $725,000 plus ASA, which got him to about $900,000. Now, if he signs this next deal, this would be the biggest deal in terms of monetary value per year that he's ever had in his career. So there's that part of it. But the other parts that have to be considered as well is since he got back to Essendon, he obviously has surrendered the captaincy, which we all expected he would and would have to if it didn't come to that decision himself. And since then, he's locked in. They say he's been one of the best trainers, of course. And pretty soon after arriving back at Essendon, under his previous management, he threw up the possibility of talking about a contract extension past the end of 2027. Now then...
But that raises eyebrows for a lot of people, doesn't it?
Like I've said a few times this week, I can't predict where this one's going to go the next step because it's changed a lot over the next 8 months, and I don't want to look silly in trying to predict what happens next either, because this story has evolved in a lot of different ways that might be unexpected across the last 6 to 8 months. But so that happens then in December. He gets back to training in January. He changes management to return to his original manager, Nick Gaetian, at the start of February, or end of January, start of February. And pretty soon after that, some conversations kick off again between his new management and the club being open to exploring what a contract extension would look like. We reported that about a month ago. He was asked about that he over in Perth when he was there for the AFL Origin game, and he said, look, there's an openness to discuss it, not in any rush, but there's an openness to look at what something could look like. And now, over the last couple of weeks, they've presented this new deal. And the suggestion that it's all been one way or another is not right either way, because there's certainly been a very two-way conversation. And if Zach Merrett didn't want to at least look at something, then it wouldn't have got to the stage of Essendon presenting a deal. That just wouldn't have happened to this point.
But just on that, so the hypothetical of Zach does want to leave at the end of the year, signs the deal and does still want to leave, because there's a lot that happens in 24 games of football. We've seen across multiple years there's been players that have been very happy, and then by the end of the year they don't want to be there. If things change, what is it? If a deal is done now, if things change in the back end of the year, what does that mean for Essendon and Zach moving forward?
I think for me this is the decision he's got to wrestle with now. If you do a deal now, you're locking yourself in. This is the all-in deal for me, I would say. And that's probably what he's wrestling with. It's probably what Essendon's wrestled with as well over this period, and the discussion being, this goes a certain way, we're not going through that again. But in the background, he's obviously got to weigh up as well. How dominant is his desire to taste success? Because we saw last Friday night, they're still a long way off the best. They're the second youngest list in the competition. I think they're playing the right people at the moment, but they don't have many other options in terms of bringing into their group, and they're a long way down that rebuild path. So that's something that he's still wrestling with. There's other clubs that are still interested in him, Hawthorn being one of them. But the other question there is, are Hawthorn going to throw as much at the trade as they did last year? Because he's a year older. There's going to be other options. And he's also, if he doesn't sign this contract extension, he's a year closer towards being out of contract and an unrestricted free agent next year, when he could walk to a club and Essendon will get one pick in return.
So that leads to my question. If he signs the extension, it's actually in Essendon's best interest to? Because you either keep the player, but isn't it you can extract more at the trade table if they've got longer left on their contract? So Zach Merrett with 4 years to go gives you a stronger amount of leverage than with 1 year to go. Is this part of the play as well?
Potentially. I don't know that. I'm not obviously in those very tight conversations.
But you've seen enough of these where a player with multiple years to go,
they're worth more, obviously, on a trade table. And that's the case last year because he had 2 years left to run on a contract. And we saw it from Charlie Curnow, who had 4 years left when he left, and Christian Petrarca 4 years. The club that has the contracted player holds the whip hand, and the power shifted a little bit last year. It didn't in the trade period. Essendon did that. Carlton held firm. Melbourne held firm to a degree on Petrarca, and obviously Rowan Marshall and those players didn't get deals done. So there is that element. But more to the point, he's got to make a decision whether he just wants to see it out now. And if he does, and he doesn't want to go through the discussion on a week-to-week, game-to-game, quarter-by-quarter discussion every single week about his performance and how in he is, how out he is, what that discussion's about, he can close that now.
Love to get your thoughts on the Nick Theodosi open line, 133 693. It's a pretty quick about face, though, because the language was pretty strong that I don't want to be here. I want to be at Hawthorn. And everything, all the commentary around it, even from teammates and himself, was it's been great at Essendon. And no, I don't think any Essendon fan can begrudge him looking elsewhere because you can't do much more in your career there. But it's a pretty quick turnaround, Cal.
I'm not denying that, Jim. It's been a wild story to follow over the last 6 months. What do you think, Doc? What should he do?
Yeah, I don't know. The first I heard of this, I thought it was ridiculous. The more I thought about it, I actually think it's a win-win for both sides. I think that Zach gets all of us off his back for the year. I think if there's conversations had behind closed doors around, all right, if you actually want to leave at the end of the year, by you signing us on a longer term, signing with Essendon for a longer term, it allows them to extract more trade value. It also locks in Zach's future. I'm seeing very few negatives in either side of where this deal doesn't make sense. And I've probably done a full 360 of probably what everyone's listening is. It seemed ridiculous at the start. The more you dig into it, there's actually a lot of reasons that make sense for both parties in this one.
I just think it's important to note as well, this has been two-way. It hasn't been forced upon him a contract extension. And I have noticed there's some suggestions around there's pressure being put on him to sign, and this is their way of getting that through. I don't think that's the case. Well, it isn't the case. And he'll end up being able to either decide or not. And if he doesn't, then it just remains what it is. And that's the status quo. And then we get to the end of the year and he decides if he wants to move or look at an option. And at that point, Essendon still, with a contracted player, will be able to say yes or no, determined by what the deal is.
Is Tassie a factor, not only for Essendon and Hawthorn, because we're going to have some compromise drafts coming up and they get first crack at it, whereas it felt like last trade free agency period was really important for a lot of clubs because moving those picks and knowing where you are, use the premiership clock. The fact is now we're another year closer, which actually closes that gap where sides are going to be a little bit more reluctant to move around or actually trade for picks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the unspoken thing about the Tassie effect is that the picks for the next 2 years are already worth way less because of these concessions that Tasmania will get this year through its under-17s access. So we'll already see 6 to 8 of next year's draft ripped out of the pool. They'll be out and unavailable. Throw in the fact that Tasmania has 6 of the first 11 picks or something next year. So you already see, and that was the case last year when Essendon saw the offer from Hawthorn. It was like, yeah, okay, so that first pick last year was solid. Next year, if Essendon gives Hawthorn Zach Merrett, they probably finish in the top 4, certainly. They might do it anyway. And then the following year, there's Tasmania picks, that's a plus 20 pick. So yeah, there's been a lot of debate about whether they should have accepted the deal. Everyone's going to have a different view on that. The reality is Essendon ended up getting a top 10 pick from Carlton and picked Dyson Sharp, which is the player they would have picked if they'd taken the Hawthorn deal in the first place. So you're right, though, Jim. The trading impact of Tasmania is going to go beyond just the players getting better offers. It's that the actual value of picks to get other deals done is far lower.
And then especially if we have adjustment to NGA and Academy and all those sort of rules coming in. Some positive steps for Bobby Hill.
Yeah, he's been away from Collingwood for some time now on personal leave. Didn't return to pre-season training once the players returned in January. But he's taken his first steps in a return to AFL level. He's returned to the Collingwood Football Club today. A bit of a light introduction or reintroduction, Sam, just to get himself back in terms of seeing and connecting with his teammates and coaches. So the expectation now, or the hope and expectation, is that he returns to the track next week and starts to build up. This, I think, would be a surprise to some at Collingwood that it's progressed to this point. So early in the year, there was a fear that he might not be back available at all throughout this season. But this now gives him an opportunity, Jim, to be back playing in the second half of the season. A lot of conditioning work will have to be done. He'll have to take a lot of steps to win back that fitness for a start, and also that trust level from his teammates. But I think from his perspective, it's certainly a step in the right direction.